Okay, we are live now. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I need to say all this because we have audience connected from different countries. And I'm really excited to see you all on this Saturday evening, which is morning for me here in US. And okay, I need to talk about this group first of all before we dive into the sessions and other stuffs. So let me share my screen quickly. And also I will introduce speakers in a couple minutes. Just give me some moment. Okay, let me put my deck on the sharing. Just a moment. Okay, hope you are able to see my deck. And I'll just quickly check the YouTube video just to make sure we don't have any issues. Just a moment. Yep, it's streaming fine. Yes, I can see that. Okay, sure. Yeah, about this group, this meetup group was created like 3 months back. And the main intention was to just spread knowledge on Angular with whoever interested. And that's how I started this group. And we had participants from different locations join for the first event itself. So that made me to do more and give back to the community. So that's why I started scheduling this monthly event in this group. And also it's going to be a medium, or I would say like a place where all the speakers can come in and exchange their knowledge and share it with the rest of the community as well, right? So that's all about the group. And just in case if you haven't RSVP'd for any of our future events, or if you haven't joined our meetup group yet, please do it now. I will just share the link in YouTube comments right away, so that you can just take a look at our group. And you can just RSVP our future events as well here. Okay. Okay. Okay, here it is. I just shared the link for our meetup group. Just take a look and join the group, and also let know your friends about this group so that everyone will get benefited out of it, right? Okay, and coming to our speakers. So we have two amazing speakers with us this evening. And I need to talk a little bit about speakers as well. Anyway, they are going to introduce themselves, but I just want to give a quick introduction about them. Okay, we have Santosh and Hari on the floor. I think I don't have to talk much about Santosh because most of you know like what Santosh is up to in Angular community, right? So anyway, I just want to talk something about Santosh. So he's an international speaker, and he has a session every other day, or at least one per week. And I'm really happy to have Santosh in our event today. And thank you, Santosh, for joining with us. And Hari. Okay, Hari is an architect working for Verizon India. And he just mailed me like a month back, and he showed interest that he wants to contribute something to community in terms of this event, or like however. So I asked him to present some topic, and he picked PWA. and he's going to talk about PWA today, right? So he's working as an architect in Verizon India. Okay, it's your turn, like audience turn. So just introduce yourself, your name, and the place where you joined from, like city or town or whatever, right? And your hobbies, like 1 or 2 hobbies you can mention. So I just want to know this information. I mean, I'm not going to store it somewhere, or I'm not going to have it on my mind or something. I just want you to open up and speak with the other audience as well in this event, so that you will get comfortable with others as well while posting the questions or while interacting with others, right? So go ahead and just comment your name and the place where you joined from and your hobbies, like 1 or 2 hobbies you can mention, right? So don't take more time. You can parallelly listen to our sessions, and you can just put these details in the comments. Okay. Okay. So it's time for me to introduce myself. So I'm Uday. I'm a software engineer working here in US, and I'm also a host conducting Angular Meetup events here in Raleigh as well as over online. And I also speak in Angular events as well, right? So you can check my details. I'll post the details in a couple of minutes, okay? Like my Twitter and other stuff. You can just take a look. Okay, so this is the schedule we have for today. We have enough time, like we have 2 hours. So I put like two talks. On top of that, we have on activity in between. So we start with the welcome note. Yeah, that's what we are doing now. And then we will jump on to talk 1, which is from Santosh on everything about Angular dependency injection. Post that, we will have a quick activity where we will discuss, where we will post the questions. I'll post the questions, like a kind of a funny questions, and you just need to answer that. Like we have 5 questions, right? And after that, we will have another talk from Santosh on, from Hari on PWA with Angular. Okay. And finally, we will have a closing notes and say a goodbye. Okay. So this is a schedule we have. And if you have any question on the talk, or other than if you have any questions, like if you want to participate in our future events, you can just contact me on Twitter. I will share those details in a couple of minutes. And also, if you have anything else, you just post it on YouTube comments. Okay. So that's it. And we will begin our first talk on everything about Angular's dependency injection from Santosh. And over to you, Santosh.
Yeah. Thanks a lot to that. Thanks for that nice introduction. So
Okay.
Let me share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Hope you are able to see my screen now.
Yeah. Let me remove mine so that you can see. They can see there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Santosh. You are good to go.
Yeah. Okay. So let me start with the topic which I'm going to talk about. So it will be everything about dependency injection. We will see how to use dependency injection. What are the different decorators which are available, and there are different properties which we can modify and use inside while working with the Angular dependency injection, right? So just to introduce, I know they already gave a great introduction. Just to introduce myself, I'm Santosh. I'm from Pune, India, and I'm one of the GD for Angular, and I also write for indepth.dev, and I'm also one of the mentor for Dotnettricks. In case you want to connect with me, this is my social media handle, so you can connect with me on Twitter. I also have GitHub repository which you can look into. There are a lot of repositories which are available, and if you are on LinkedIn, feel free to send me a connection request. And santoshYadav.dev is my portfolio, and I'm working on it again, so I'm trying to create a new portfolio. The current one is something which was written a year ago, and I'm not happy with that. So yep. So let's start, right? So let's start with the dependency injection. So whenever for me, the dependency injection was never a concern, because before coming to the Angular world, I was a .NET developer, and in .NET developer, believe me, you use a lot of dependency injection, right? So even if you go to MVC, .NET MVC, you have to just inject all the services, and that's what we do inside .NET. But the developers who comes into the Angular world, right? So this is something which is very difficult to understand for them, because they are learning something new. So what's a dependency injection? So this dependency injection is a design pattern. So I thought when I left the .NET world, I was done with the dependency injection, but I was totally wrong. Design patterns are everywhere, right? So even if you talk about Angular, you have a lot of design patterns which are available inside even Angular, right? So you can always go ahead and use MVC pattern or MVVM pattern. So there are different patterns which we use daily. So what we do in dependency injection, right? So in dependency injection, we inject all the things. So what we inject is something known as services. In Angular, there are three types of services which we have. So one is class based, then we have something known as value providers, and the third one is something known as factory providers. So we'll see all these three, and then we will discuss about some more things. So let's start with the live coding. So let me just move to VS Code. Yep. So Uday, just tell me if the font size is proper, or I have to increase it.
Yeah, I'm checking that, Santosh.
Okay, I think this is
Actually, there is a lag in YouTube streaming, so I cannot see that so far.
Okay. I think this will be enough, because I have a
it is fine now. I can see it.
Okay, so let's start with the class-based services. How we create a class-based service. So what we can do is we can just use the Angular CLI, and you can say ng generate, and you can use as service, or you can go ahead and use shortcuts. So I generally prefer shortcuts. So it's ngg and s, and then I can just say, okay, I want to create a service called login. So it will go ahead and create a service called login service for me. So let's see what's there, what's inside this particular service. So this is the service which is created for us, and it has something known as injectable, which is a decorator, and then we have a class which is login service, and then it has a constructor. Now I can just add some method. For example, I will not do a lot of code. I mean, I'll just create a method which says, okay, get user. So get user method returns, let's say, some information about user. So let's say it returns user ID, and it returns name. Okay, and this is what my get user method does. Now whenever I want to use this login service, we have to go to, of course, I can go ahead and use this service inside a component, or I can go ahead and use this particular service inside another service or another module, right? Sorry, another component. So here I'm going to use it inside the app component, which we already have. What if dependency injection was not available and I wanted to use this particular method in my app component.ts? So without dependency injection, your code will look something like this. So you will say, okay, login service equals to new login service. And then whenever I want to use this, for example, like I will create a method, get user info. I have to go ahead and say, okay, this dot login service dot my method get user. Okay, for login services, it looks like, okay, this is fine, right? Why to use dependency injection? But remember, when in future your login service is dependent on maybe something known as HTTP client. So we use HTTP client a lot to retrieve some data from the backend. So let's say I have this HTTP client service available here, and let's import the HTTP client from Angular common/HTTP. Okay. So now we have this HTTP client. Once we do this, now my all code which I have written will start breaking up. So I will end up with a lot of exceptions. Now you'll say, okay, this is only one instance, so why to change it? But remember, inside your large enterprise application, this is not the only place where you are going to call this service. So what to do in such cases? So we should rely on the dependency injection which is already provided by Angular, and to use that you have to say you have to always use something known as constructor injection. So in case you are coming from .NET world or Java world, you must have heard about something known as constructor injection, right? So here I can just say, okay, private, and my service instance. So I'll say, okay, this is login service, and which is type of login service. Now you can see, now the error is gone. So now the Angular dependency injection is responsible for to figure out, okay, what are the different services on which my login service depends upon. So you don't have to pass all this information while using this particular service. So this is what we mean by injecting this particular service. So now, of course, I will just remove this HTTP client as I'm not using it. And here I'll just add ng on in it to display the same information. So I'll say, okay, this is implements and implements on in it. And here I'll add ng on init, and then I will call this method, which is get users. Okay, so this is how you use class-based services. And copy this. And remove this now. So what we did is we just created a service and then we used it. Now to display this information, I'll just create a temporary variable which will hold this value. So I'll say user stream, and right now I'll say, okay, this is observable of any. Don't use any, please. I'm just doing it for demo, but don't use any inside your application. And I'll say this dot user equals to your value, which is coming from a login service. Now I can just go ahead and use a sync pipe. So I'll just go to app component.html and I'll use the async pipe user ID user pipe async to display this information. And then we are done. We have injected a service. We have used called the particular method of that service, and then we are displaying the information on the UI. So let's see on the UI. Now you can see the user ID and name is available. So this is how you use class-based service. But is it the only thing which is available? No. So let's go ahead and discuss something known about something about provided in. So when you use this particular service, you might have seen this provided in, and you must be thinking what this provided in root means. Remember, before Angular 6, this particular property was not available. So in Angular 6, before Angular 6, what we used to do is we used to register all the services here. So if I want to use login service in Angular 4 or 5 application, I will go ahead and add this login service here. And the problem was with this particular syntax is the services are not tree shakeable. So what do you mean by tree shakeable? So tree shakeable means in case I am not using this particular login service anywhere, this service will still end up in my final production code. And to avoid this, with Angular 6, starting from Angular 6, there came a new property with the injectable decorator called provided in. Now, once we say provided in root, actually your service is registered at the root level. So your service is a singleton service or single instance which is available for everyone. To actually see if this is singleton or not, let's go ahead and create few more components, right? So I'll create 2 more modules. So I'll say ng module, and I'll call this module as, let's say, employee, and then hyphen I'll create a routing module. So I'll actually basically lazy load this particular module, employee, and then module equals to app. So I'll register this with app routing module, and similarly I'll create another one which is for department, and route is department. And now we have 2. So we have one root module which is available, and then we have 2 lazy loaded module. Now let's go ahead and use the login service inside the employee component. And before I do that, I will just add a console log in my constructor to see how many times my constructor is called, because the number of times my constructor is called is the number of instance which I have available. So I'll say, okay, this is login service instance. Okay. And then I'll add few anchor tags on my HTML, right? So I need the anchor tags as well. So I'll just say, okay, this is anchor router link equals to employee, and then I'll say, okay, this is employee. And similarly, I'll just add one for department. And this is department. And then we'll just add a router link, router outlet. So whatever route I click on will be available here. And inside employee component, I'll just go ahead and say private, same login service, right? So I'll just inject login service here, and then I will just copy it and go to department component and add this code. Add this code here. I mean, I'm injecting the login service here as well. So now my login service is injected at 3 places. So I have it inside my root module, I have it inside the employee module, I have it inside department module. And now let's go ahead and see the UI. And I will just go ahead and say inspect element. And okay, let's see if there is any, no, there is no error. Click on employee, employee is loaded. Click on department, department works. But the important thing to notice here is you can see login service instance. So it is called only once, right? So even though I'm injecting it at 3 places, because my provided is in root, I'm getting only one instance which is available. So let's go ahead and see what are the different properties which we can pass for provided in. So a root, which we have already seen and which is by default. Then we have something known as any. So what happens in any? So let's go ahead and change this provided in to any. Provided in any is actually available after Angular 8. And you can see, let me just clear it and change this path to localhost 4200. Now you have one instance available, which is login service.ts line number 11. I hope you can see this. And let's click on employee. Now you can see the another instance of login got initialized. Click on department, another instance of department got initialized. So the important thing to understand here is how any works. So in any, what happens is you will have one single instance available for all the eagerly loaded module. Remember this. Any, when all the eagerly loaded module will share the same instance, but in case I need that every lazy loaded module should have their own instance, then you should go ahead and use any. Earlier there was a problem that whenever you lazy load module, you are still using the same instance which is available, which was problematic in few cases, because let's say I want to initialize something, but once my module is loaded, I don't want that particular service is already created and should be available, or I'm using the old version which is available for everyone. So the older solution to this was either you can go ahead and register this particular service with module itself. So what I can do is I can just go ahead and register inside the providers array inside employee module. But again, it creates a problem that your services are not really shakeable. Another way to actually do that was you might have seen the implementation for something known as for root and for child. Lot of third-party services do use that particular approach. Now it's not required, so you can just go ahead and say, okay, my service is any. So whenever a lazy loaded module tries to use my particular service, it will create a new instance. So this is what any means. Then there is third property, which is known as platform. So remember, platform is something which will in case you give a platform provided in called platform, the same instance will be available for multiple applications. So the best use case for this is your micro frontends, but still we don't have any practical example to show you. So to give you an idea where it is used right now, so it is used by the router service which you use. Remember, so when you use router service, even though you have multiple URLs, it happens inside the same browser. So you register using for root for child, but still you get a single URL inside your browser. So this is third one. Then you can also mention the component or module inside your provided in property. So I can just go ahead and, let's say I want to create this particular service, but I want it to be available only for employee module, right? So I can just say, go ahead and mention the employee module here. And this is it. Now this particular service is only accessible to employee module, and we will get a lot of exceptions that, okay, this particular service is not available. You might have seen this null injector, no provider for login service. I'm sure everyone new to Angular must have seen this error in their lifetime many times. So when you start learning, okay, this is okay, what is this no provider for login service, especially when we used to work with Angular 4 or 5, because everything was manual, right? You have to create a service and then you have to make sure it is registered. With Angular 6 and above, it by default gets registered in root. So you will not see this error quite often, but I'm sure the developers who started with Angular 4 or 5, they might have seen this error and they might have actually Googled what it means. So this is also possible. Even I can just say, okay, this is something which is available for my employee component, and I can just use it inside employee component. I hope you don't have any doubts here or any questions here related to what we mean by provided in and what are the different properties which can be used. Let's move ahead, right? So another topic. The most important thing in dependency injection is to understand how your dependencies get resolved. You register a particular service. So you said, okay, this particular service is registered in, let's say, root. So all the services are something or by default are registered in your module injector. But let's say I am trying to use this login service right now inside employee component here, right? So how it gets resolved. So the first thing which will happen is this the Angular framework will try to figure out if this particular service is available with the component itself. Means, is it registered with my own component? So your framework says, no, I don't have this particular service. So what it goes one level up, it goes to employee module and it will check, do you have this particular service available? The again, the employee module says, okay, I don't have any idea about this particular service. It goes one level up, it goes to app module, which is your root. All the services are registered here by default until unless you want to do that. And it says, okay, app module, do you have this particular service available? App module says, okay, yes, I do have this particular service available, and your entire tree is sorted. If your app module says, okay, I don't have this particular service available, it goes to module injector. Module injector is something which is configured by platform module, and there are few actually tokens which are available, which is internal to the framework, and which of course we can also override them, but that's not what we are going to see right now. And then if module injector also don't have that particular token available or service available, it goes to null injector, and once it reaches to null injector, you get the same error which we just saw, no provider for a login service, right? So this is how your entire tree works. There are ways to actually stop this entire lookup. So you can actually go ahead and modify this DI lookup in your application. So how to do that? In case, let's say my login service, I want to make sure that, okay, here I will create one child for employee component. So I'll say this inside NgGC, I'll create a component. I'll say this is employee -list, and it will be employee dash. Okay, I'm missing O. So I've created another component which is employee list, right? And now that employee list should be created inside the employee folder. That's why I said employee /. And this component is registered with your employee module, right? I'm sure everyone knows about this. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I'll use this login service. I'll not add it here. I will inject inside employee list. Okay. So the login service is registered with employee list component right now. Of course, it will still work. There will be no exceptions, because anyways, it goes to the parent, which is employee, then it goes to the and finally it reaches to the root and says, okay, this particular service is available. But what in case what I want to achieve here is I add this into employee component, right? So what now? Now what I want is whenever employee list comes looking for a service called login service, the employee component should be one responsible for providing that instance. So what I can do is I can just say this particular component will use something known as host decorator, and then inject the login service here, private login service and type of login service. And let's save this. And I'm expecting an error, but let's see. Yeah. So now it says, okay, not found login service. So what I'm doing here is I'm telling to the compiler that whenever anyone comes looking for login service, don't go up. Don't go up. This is the final host where this particular service should be available. So what I have to do here is I have to use the providers property here, and then I have to provide login service. So all the childs of login all the childs of employee component will actually use the employee component as host component, and for login service they will not look above this particular service, and if it's not available it will just break. This has a pretty powerful use case when in cases where you want to have multiple containers, and all the containers should be responsible for providing their own instance. For example, container 1, container 2, they are providing some service, the same service, but you don't want to actually give that particular service as a singleton. They should have their own separate instance. So you can go ahead and use host decorator. That's the use case. Then another decorator which we will talk about is something known as optional. So let's say I want to provide this particular service, but I want to make it optional. The perfect use case is something known as logger. So generally what we do is we never log on production, right? So what I can do is I can just inject a service. So I'll just give you an example with login service. I'll say, okay, this is optional here. Okay. And I'll just remove the providers. So everything will work because I'm not calling any method of employee service or login service. So everything works. But as soon as I try to use, for example, this .login service .get user, okay. So yeah, you can see everything is working fine, no issues. I can also make it optional. So let's say I can just check if this .login service exists, right? For example, let's say you have rather than login service, you have something known as logger service, which logs some data on your UI, and you only need that particular service should be available during development and should not be available during production. So you have some code written that you will remove all the logger service instances during production, and now you can just actually add this code base into your code wherever you want to use logger service. And if logger service exists, that's absolutely fine. If it doesn't exist, that's also absolutely fine. There will be no exceptions. So this is what we mean by optional. Then we have something known as, let's verify it again. Of course, it's working fine, but let's see it. Then you have something known as self. So in self decorator, what you do is, we already know about the tree, right? So in self decorator, you tell the compiler that, okay, look, I'll be the one responsible for providing the instance to myself. So don't go ahead and look anywhere else. So I can say this is self decorator, and in this case, I'm saying this particular service is available with myself. So don't look above the tree, or don't look anywhere. Just I am the one who's responsible for providing this particular service. So as soon as you do that, as soon as you set self, it will start throwing an exception. The same exception, not found login service. So what you have to do is, in this case, you have to use providers property. Now, when you will use self, so the perfect use case which I have seen is there was a framework on which I was working on, and what we used to do is we used to create the forms. So entire form used to be generated using some JSON data, and what I did is, by mistake, I actually commented out this providers, because this providers property is something which is available before Angular 4, from the Angular 4 onwards. So I just commented this out just to because I was just refactoring my code. And what happened is, I had multiple screens where actually I was using that particular service to generate the UI. And at one point of time, I realized my application has become really slow. So I thought of, okay, let's look into what's happening. So I just went and added some console.logs to see how many controls I have on my UI. So I realized at some point of time I had around 300 controls generated. So I was like really shocked. How is that possible? That how can I just have 300 controls? I tried to check if my JSON is perfectly fine. So then finally I realized that in this particular scenario, I needed that particular component should have its own instance. So if I am using let's say that form component which was available, if I am creating multiple instances of that particular form component, that every component should have their own instances, and that's what I was missing. So in those cases, what you can do is you can just say providers, and then that particular component will have its own instance available. By default, what happens is that something which is available in root, and then you have a single instance, and single instance will be shared by everyone. So this is the use case, perfect use case, where you can go ahead and use providers. And you can, when you are doing this, make sure that you are using self decorator. Otherwise, the guy like me will come into your project, and he will try to be smart, and then he will remove it and see, let's see what happens, right? So once you add self decorator, at least the person who is not aware of self decorator, he will try to Google, okay, what you mean by self decorator. So here I'm trying to tell that this component should provide its own service, and you are safe, and you are future safe. So let's go ahead and see the next property. We also have skip self. So skip self is pretty powerful in case you are aware that this particular component will never have its own instance available. So what you can do is you can just remove yourself from the tree, right? So you will just tell the compiler, oh, don't look into my metadata, because I don't have this particular service available anyways. As soon as skip self is found, it will just skip that particular component. It will go to the parent. So here the perfect use case is employee list, right? Because employee list will never provide this instance to itself. So what I can do is I can just use, okay, I'll mark it as skip self, and now it is removed from the tree, entire traversal. So it is removed. So this is what how you can actually modify the DI lookup. Now this is something related to the class based services. Now we have something more. We have also tokens. So if I go back, we said there are three types of services. Class-based services, we learned everything about class-based services till now. Then we have something known as value providers, where value providers are useful. So remember, in earlier slide, I just said inject all the things. And why I said that, because there are times that where developers, what they do is they have some constant values, and they try to use constant values directly into your code base. That is something which is not preferred, or which is something not suggested, because it's against the DI principle, right? So what you can do is you can provide these tokens, which is nothing but some constants, as a value, and then you can go ahead and use it inside your project. So how to create a token? So what I will do is I will create an interface. So let's take an example of environments, right? The perfect example, environments. So I'll just add one more property here called API endpoint. And I'll just say, okay, this is abc.com. And then I'll just add it here, because the production build should not fail. And then I will use these values as a service. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can do that. So I'll just create a folder, and I'll say this is a token. And here I'll create an interface. I'll say this is config.ts, and I'll create an interface. And of course, I will export it. Otherwise, it cannot be used outside. And then I will use the two properties, which is production and API endpoint. So production is something known as Boolean, and API endpoint is something which is string. So now this is my interface, which just holds the structure of how my token, or what are the different values which will be available inside my token. And then I will create a config token. Right? And here I'll just create a new token. So I'll say, okay, constant, and you should export it. And I'll call it as, let's say, config token. And then you have to use something known as new injection token. And then you will provide, okay, what will be the signature for this particular injection token. So I'll say, okay, this is something which is my interface called config. And then I can also give a name. So I'll say, okay, this is config token. This name is actually even available once your code is compiled, right? I mean, it's the minified version, but this token or the string value will be still available. And then I will create another export, another constant, where I'll say this is config value, which will be type of course, my interface. But remember, I already have these values available inside the environment. So I'll just say, okay, this is, let's import from environment. Of course, environment.prod will be available once you create a production build. And I will take environment from here, and I will pass this to environment dot, this is production, and then this is API endpoint. So I'll say, okay, this is environment dot API endpoint. So these two values are available. So I have my token available, my values available, and whenever I want to use it, I'll first register it. So I'll just go to app module. I will say, okay, inside providers, I'll say, okay, this is provide. So what in provide, you will mention the config token, and then you will use something known as use value. And in use value, you will mention the config value which is available. So this is config value, and this is it. Your service is registered. Your token is registered as a service, and now you can use it. So let's go ahead and use it. Remember, interfaces or tokens are not cannot be directly used inside your constructor. So you have to use something known as inject. So inject decorator is available with I, sorry, not small I. So inject decorator, you will use Angular core, and then you will inject here the config token. Okay, so I'll say, okay, this is config underscore token, and then same, I'll create a instance, variable private. I'll say this is token service, and here you will give the signature, but you will mention the interface name. Don't mention the values. Okay, so I'll say, okay, this config interface is the signature for this particular service. Now wherever I want to use it, I'll just say console.log, and this dot token service dot, let's say I want to access API endpoint. So you have some code written for HTTP calls. You need the API endpoint, but it is available in environment.ts. Never use it directly from environment.ts. Create a token and then use it. Let's go ahead and see on the front end. So you can see abc.com is available here as soon as your app component.ts got initialized. So this is how you can go ahead and use tokens. In tokens, you of course you use value, but there are a few more properties which I think this is the last thing which we are going to see. So provided in modify lookup. So there is something known as aliased class provider. So we have already seen use value, which is used when we work with tokens. But there is something also new available, something known as use class. So where use class is used, or what's the use case to actually have use class? The syntax which I'm going to show you is available for Angular 6+. This is not available for Angular 4 and 5. So let's say there is a scenario that you have get user, and then you have a logout method. Okay, so I have two methods available inside this particular service. Now your application is pretty old. Your manager comes to you and then says, okay, look, this is a new requirement which we want to do. And then you realize that, okay, there are few methods of login service which needs to be overwritten. Not all. I'm not talking about all. So what generally we do is we go ahead and add a new method, and then we just go ahead and use that particular method at all the places. Is that feasible? Remember, in a large application where you have enterprise-wide application, hundreds of components, and it's being used everywhere, adding one method and then replacing it everywhere, it sounds fun, but believe me, it is not fun. Anything can go wrong. So what I can do is I can create a new service. So I'll say ng service, and I will say this is new login service. Okay. And in new login service, I will add the implementation for get users. So the method which I want to override. So I'll say, okay, get user. And I'll just change the user ID so we can see the differences, right? So I'll just also say change the name. Now in login service, what you can do is you can also add a property called use class. And then you can say, okay, use new login service, which is available. So new login service. And let's go ahead and run this and see on the UI. And you can see user ID 2 and name test1 is available. Are we injecting new login service? No, we are not injecting new login service. We are still injecting the login service. The way it works is it will go ahead and check if this particular get user method is available in this class, it will serve it. If that method is not available inside new login service, it will serve from this particular existing class. So it makes your life much easier. And I'm sure most of you will agree here, because you might have been in some scenario where you wanted to override a service and this is what you ended up doing. Add a new method, replace it everywhere. But this is the most feasible way. I mean, I quickly just added use class, created a new method with created a new class, new service with new method, and done. I don't have to even change a single line of code anywhere inside my component. So be smart, use this approach whenever you want, whenever you have some kind of scenario. Again, let's say now what I have done is, after a few iterations, I said my new login service contains all the methods. Now, and also what I did is I started using new login service rather than the old login service. For example, in department component, I will go to department component and use the new login service. Okay, so now there is no issues in front end. You will not notice anything. So everything works, right? The only problem is now there are two instances of login service. How is that possible? One, when actually you asked for login service, we are mentioning that login service returns this particular instance, and this is where most of things go wrong. Now you have two instances of new login service. Now what you can do is you can say, okay, now I have written or replaced new login service everywhere in my new implementations. My old implementation still contains login service injected everywhere. Again, what you will do is what I will do as a developer is I will just go ahead and replace it with new login service. Again, that's not feasible, believe me, in a large enterprise application. So what you can do is you can say, okay, now what you can do is don't create the new instance for new login service. Use the existing instance of login service even someone asks for login service. In this case, we have a single instance for everyone. So even though you might have seen earlier the number was 2 here, now it's not coming. Sorry. Yeah, so this is lazy loaded module. That's why we are getting this. But now you will have single instance of new login service available everywhere. So this is this is how you can use existing. Just make sure that you are doing this once you are done implementing all the methods, and you have already started using new login service in some of the components. So this is another property, use existing. And there is one last thing which is pending. I'm sure let's go ahead and figure that out. So that's something known as factory providers. Now factory providers has a different use case. So let's say I have a service. So I'll create a service called NgRx, and I will call this as a dependent service. So I'll say this is dependent service, which will depend on some other service to get the data. So let's say I need the user ID available inside this dependent service. What we generally do, let me tell you this is something which I have also done. So I will say, okay, this is login service, and with this type of login service, now I have access to everything. So I can go ahead and say login service dot the small login service dot, I'll call get user, then I will try to subscribe it, right? And then in subscribe, I will just go ahead and say, okay, give me the data. And from data, I'll say, okay, data dot user ID. So I'll take this value, I'll store it in one of the variables, maybe user ID, and then I will use it. But don't you think it's a lot of work to just get the user ID out of one particular service, and then I have to always rely on the same instance every time, because it will be singleton instance, right? What can be done? So let me just comment this out, and let me show you another way to do this. First thing which I will do is I will, of course, have a constructor, and then I will say, give me user ID. Remember, user ID is not available anywhere. And this user ID is type of number. Okay. As soon as you do this and save your code, you will start getting an exception. Okay. So first, let's. Okay, my application is not getting compiled somehow. Okay, let's do that again. NgServe. So the first thing which you have to do is, of course, once you will write this code, you will start getting an exception that, okay, this particular user ID is not available. So first thing should do is remove this injectable. So right now we have removed this injectable, right? And there will be no exception. Everything will be compiled successfully, and you still have your code base working. Now, what I will do is I will create a export function, and I will call this function as let's say factory or dependent factory. And this factory will take the so right now I just need user ID. For example, I also have something, let's say HTTP service, right? So let's take an example where I'll say HTTP, which is type of HTTP client service, right? So in that case, you have to pass multiple parameter here. Right now, I just need login service, and then I will say, okay, this HTTP, which is type of HTTP client. So you have to pass everything which is available inside constructor. So let's take an example where we just have user ID required from login service. Okay. And here I'll first I will get the user ID which is available here, right? So I'll just create a variable, maybe user ID is equals to, I can say, okay, this dot, so not this, I'll say login service dot get user dot to promise dot, then I'm just using to promise for demo. Don't use to promise. I mean, I'm sure everyone is aware that to promise will be deprecated soon, right? And then I will say, okay, this data, or we create a constant. So let user ID equals to, by default, I will say, okay, this is 0. And then data, so let's say this is user ID is equals to data dot user ID, right? So I just extracted the user ID which is available inside login service, and then after this I'll just return a new instance of my dependent service, and I will pass this user ID because otherwise it will never be compiled. So I created this factory, and now I have to make sure that whenever I want to use dependent service, this user ID is always available. So I'll just add one more method, get user info, right? So let's say it's what it does is this dot user ID is greater than 0, then return maybe true or return false. Right? This is what we are doing. So just a method called get user info. And now to use the latest syntax, to use the tree shakeable dependencies, what you have to do is let's create a new service. So I'll say ng service, and I will call this as maybe a new dependent service. So this is my new service which is available, new dependent service, and here I will use something known as use factory. So what I'm saying is, whenever I'll ask for new dependent service, go ahead and execute this factory and give me the dependent service. So internally, it will actually return you the instance of the dependent service which is available. And then you have to pass the dependencies array. And then here you'll say, okay, I depend on login service. Okay. And the only problem with this syntax is you have to actually give the not the implementation, just the definition for the method. So I'll say, okay, this is the definition for get user info. Is this going to be called? No. The actually it will go ahead and call the get user info from the dependent service. So let's try to use it. So I'll go to app component.ts. Here I'll inject dependent service, but I will not inject dependent service directly because it cannot be resolved. So I'll say, okay, new dependent service is something which I'm looking at. And here in console, I'll just print console.log, and let's call this dot dependent service dot get user info, and let's see the data. So let's save it. Everything should be compiled successfully. Let's go ahead and see on the UI. I'll just inspect. Let's open the console, and you should be able to see am.component.ts new this dot dependent get user info. Is there anything which is unsaved? No. Okay, so let's see dependent service. So I have this user ID available, then this dependent service is user ID. Dependent service get user. Okay, let me just check. Last time actually when I tried it, there was a problem that it was failing because of this to promise. So let's check. Let me check quickly. I think this is the problem. Get user. Let's try to move this inside. Okay, get user info of undefined. This is because of this only, but let's see. Okay, last time I think I used subscribe. Let's see if it works with subscribe. Dot user ID data dot user ID, and then I'm returning this. So subscribe data, and okay, one more opening, and this is it. Let's see. Works, right? So okay, I'm somehow getting undefined here with a new dependent user dependent service, which is nothing but dependent service contains constructor, user ID, okay, and factory, and my new dependent service. Let me just verify. New dependent service is using use factory, and it is defining the dependencies. It has constructor get user info, and let's see. Okay, so sorry. I think I have to use new the dependent service. Let's see, dependent service app component.ts, because this is something which is being written. So I'm sure this is what I'm making or doing wrong here. No, new dependent service. Okay, I think I'm missing something here, but this was the last thing which we wanted to discuss about, that whenever you want to use something like this, you should always use the factory, uh, not the other approaches. So whenever your service is dependent on something, just go ahead and use factory rather than actually creating a new service and injecting the another service, for example, login service there. So of course, I will. What I will do is I will fix this, and I will try to push this with the existing code base. And this was the last thing which we wanted to discuss about. So we are done with everything which is available inside your dependency injection. So you can now control how your services are resolved. You can control how many instances of your particular service you have, and yep, this is it. So in case you have any question, feel free to contact me on any of the social media platforms. So I'm available on LinkedIn, Twitter, and my portfolio contains my email ID as well. Feel free to connect with me on my email ID. That's also absolutely fine. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Santosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quick, crisp, and you covered it elaborately as well. So
Thank you.
yeah, we used to think like services is just go and create a service and add it as a provider. That's what I used to think. But you showed like many things that can be done with Angular services.
Thank you.
Thanks once again. And we have a couple of questions from participants.
Mm-hmm.
Let me post that on StreamYard.
Okay, you can just stop my screen. Let me just stop it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think you have mentioned that error, right?
Mm-hmm. No
Service.
provide.
Yeah, no provider error.
Mm-hmm.
I think Oliver mentioned that it is one of the
Fire.
top 5 errors in Angular.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I was working with Angular 4 and 5, I remember every time.
Okay. And this is a question from Vivek.
Mm-hmm.
Can we mention? I mean, you can read it. Yeah.
Can we mention multiple providers? Okay, can you mention multiple modules in provided in? No, that's not possible.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and see that. I mean, we can just look into the structure of.
Mhm.
Generally, what I do is I verify it from the structure of provided in. So you can just click on provided in, and you will see, okay, what are the different ways to provide the data, right? So you will see there is something known as type decorator which is available, right? And provided in.
You are
You
sharing
have.
something?
Sorry. Yeah, let me do that. Okay, so you can always just go ahead and click on the property, and you will come to the definition of this particular file. So you can see it has type of any, and then you have root, platform, any, and null. So null injector, of course, goes to the null injector error. But in type of any, you can also always provide a component or a module, but not multiple.
Okay.
It's a union operator actually.
Okay. So coming to the next question. Yeah, it's from Oliver again.
Mm-hmm. Can we use class in on injectables based on condition? Use class based on condition. I think in that case you need a factory. So if you need based on condition, I think the factory is the perfect use case for you.
Okay.
You don't need to use class.
think that's all we have. Audience, do you have any other questions to Santosh? Santosh, can you please share the slides?
Yeah, sure, I will do that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you can just put it in the comments, like YouTube comments, if you want, so that everyone can access it. Okay, we have one question from Hassan. Hey, Hassan.
what if you have to share service between lazy modules? If you want to share something between lazy modules, look, you have to go ahead and use the provided in root. So that's in that case, you have a single instance which is available across, and then you can do that. But it's which is by default, right? But the only difference is in case you want to have a separate instance of for lazy loaded modules, then we need to use any. Even sharing between lazy modules was also possible before this provided in any came in.
Yeah, so that's what Oliver as well mentioned.
Yeah.
The comment. Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so any more questions?
Yeah, or as Lars mentioned, right? You can use also provided in some module.
It's some module.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and that some module can be your shared module.
Yeah. Okay, we got one question from Venkatesh.
How to use value provider for environment specific? What we mean by environment specific? So anyways, the example which I have shown you, right? So where I'm using the environment.ts file as token. So it will take the values will be replaced based on your build. For example, if I see say ng build --- prod, it will actually go ahead and take the environment.production.ts file. So you don't have to do anything in that case. That's what I was referring to, right? Whenever you want to use any tokens or any values, go ahead and inject it, so it becomes easier to maintain.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all we have. Okay, one final call. Any more questions to Santosh? Okay, I think that's all.
So there are a few more tokens which is available at the module module injector level. So I think that's what Lars is referring to. You can also do that. But I mean, of course, which I have not covered, right? So because I just don't want to take the advanced concept here.
Yeah. Thanks, Lars, for chipping in your inputs.
Yeah. Thank you, Lars.
And yeah, we got a question from Shubham.
How to check JWT every time when new component load? I think to check a new component on every, I think this is something which you can do using guard, as Lars already mentioned. You can always go ahead and use can activate guard. So that's the answer. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Santosh. Thank you for taking your time and sharing your knowledge with us on Angular dependency injection. I'm sure this video will be helpful for everyone, those who missed the event as well. And this will be a quick reference for everyone that wants to learn deeper in Angular dependency injection.
Thank you there.
Yeah. Thanks, Santosh.
And I just wanted to, I mean, maybe I will leave a little bit early because I have to take some medicine and then I have to go for a walk. So in case someone is interested, we also have, I mean, all the users, they can just drop me a message. I have some connect with Dotnettricks, who is ready to sponsor a few coupon codes for all of you, and then you can just drop me a mail. I will get 1 month free subscription for all of you. You can just drop me a message on Twitter, or just feel free to send me a mail or LinkedIn request.
Yeah, I just posted Santosh's Twitter handle on video. You can just go through that and connect with them. And if you have any questions, you can even contact me. I can connect you with Santosh as well. Yep. Thank you so much, Santosh. And this
Thank
is
you.
last appreciation which we got from Oliver.
Thanks, Oliver.
Yep. So take care, Santosh.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Before we move on to the next section, I just want to check whether Hari is able to connect with us. I'm going to add Hari to the stream. Hari, are you there? Okay, actually, Hari is facing some issues with the StreamYard. Hari, are you there?
Yes, Uday. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you, but I mean, your voice is very low.
Now it is better.
Yeah, now it is better, but I can't see anything on the screen. Says, I mean, your network is stopping you from sharing something.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And you can't access anything outside of your company network, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can't proceed in that case. So what we will do, we will have your talk again in next event. Is that fine for you?
Yes, Uday. Yeah.
Yeah. Why? Because we can't see anything on the screen, and I mean, it will not be good, right? If we don't see anything on the screen, and if you just talk something.
Yeah, sure, Uday. Actually, I prepared some of the slides, so it will be great to see the slides and then the talk.
Yeah. That's what my intention too. Okay, we will have your talk again in the next event, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe you can have all those slides outside of your company network.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hari. And participants, we will have one ice-breaking activity now. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, I just shared my screen. Hope you are able to see my screen now. Okay, let's have a quick a fun activity now. So this is not a quiz or something. This is kind of a ice-breaking activity. I just want to break the silence that we have in this room, right? In this event, basically. So I'm going to post a couple questions here, and you can just answer that. Answer for those questions in YouTube comments. Okay. So I have like 5 questions. So I'm going to take like 30 seconds for each question. Okay. I don't want to take more time for this activity. So each question we are going to take 30 seconds. Okay. So the first question is, if you were famous, what would you be famous for? So let me read out the question again. I hope you are able to see the screen. If not, just let me know in the comments. If you were famous, what would you be famous for? So time starts now. So let me check the answers. in YouTube video. Okay, so we got one answer. How about others? Okay, it's over. So 30 seconds over. So I see a couple of response. Let me read it out. Developer, Shubham says developer. Oliver says couch potatoing. Okay. And Shabir says humbleness. Ramesh says coding. Ankit, GD. Wow. And Santosh says for cracking up loud jokes. Wow, great. And Arjun says famous as a developer. And Pradeep, PUBG. Okay. Arun, hacker. Jaiprakash, JavaScript. And Iger, laziness. And Janani for training people. Okay, that's good. So I will also answer this question. So if I am famous for sure I'll be a professor by now in some college, because I started my career as a professor. I mean lecturer, not professor. So by now I should be professor somewhere. Okay. Moving on to the next question. Are you a morning person or a night person? So which means you like waking up early, completing the task, or you are a night owl, exit late in the night and continue working. So which one you are? Morning person or night person? So let me start the timer again. Okay, it's okay. Night person, night person, night person, night person. Okay, most of you answered night person. Okay, always night person. I see very few morning person. That's cool. Okay, I am a morning person. Okay. I think we got answers from everyone, almost. So moving on to the next question, right? So I don't think it's kind of a controversial thing or something. This is just for the sake of conversation. I'm asking this question. Okay. So if you could rename Angular, what name would you pick? So your timer starts now. Let's see what answers we got. Okay, night persons are called as dark nights. Yeah, that's cool, Santosh. Okay. Okay, we got couple answers. I would replace with my name, Arjun. Okay, that's cool. An easy framework from Venkatesh. Avengers, cool. Don't be evil. Butterfly, wow. Okay, what I should say? Okay, I would keep it Angular because the name is already good and it's already popular, right? I don't have to change it. If I need to change it, really, if I need to change it, I will change it to like keep it short, like NG, right? So short and sweet. I'll name it as NG, so that it can go with Angular commands as well. Yeah, that's what Hari also says. Cool. Okay, next question. if you could magically become fluent in one language, what would it be? So language in the sense it's natural language, not the programming language. Okay. So natural language like English, Hindi, Tamil, or French, whatever, right? And make sure other than your mother tongue or English, which one you will pick as answer for this question. Okay. So your timer starts now. Yeah, this was my tweet yesterday. Shubham, thanks for pointing it out. Yeah, this was a tweet I posted yesterday, and I got like a huge response. And I came to know the languages that are not known to me. I mean, that were new to me. So what language you will pick? Okay, 30 seconds over. Let me go through the answers. Okay, it is Hindi from Ankit, Venkatesh English, Shabir Kannada, Shubham Sanskrit, Vivekanandan French, Arun Kumar Dutch, and Ramesh Trichelvan French, Shubham Dev. Yeah, okay, yeah. And Oliver White Dutch. Okay, Oliver posted a question. Okay, so let me answer this question. I want to learn Hindi, and following that, I want to learn French. Okay, first I want to learn Hindi, and then I just want to move to one international language, French, and after that I want to learn Spanish. But I'm not sure whether I can do all this. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So what is your absolute dream job? I don't mention it as a don't mention it as a developer, coder, or programmer. Yeah, we are already on that job. So just mention your job that you wanted to be, right? That you wanted to do, basically. So your time starts now. And again, I posted this as a tweet like a couple days back. Okay, 9 seconds, 6 seconds. Okay, let me go through the question answers. Okay, Santosh wanted to be a cricketer. That's cool. And Arjun, defense officer. Okay. Shubham, Indian Army. Ramesh, astronaut. Ankit Kumar wanted to be GD. Okay, want to work in Google. Pradeep, raw agent. Okay. Vivekanandan, UI architect. Janani Rajeshwari, cook. Arjun, defense officer. Oliver, non-profit as full-time. That's cool. And Iger, I have it as a developer. Cool. Okay, my dream job is to work in one of these FANG companies, right? Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, or Google. Yeah, I should mention Microsoft as well. So that's my dream job. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so that's all I have. 5 interesting questions. I think it opens up you, and you can ask more questions in future whichever event you join, right? So this is kind of a ice-breaking activity that makes you to ask question. Okay, and we use this ice-breaking activity mostly in meetings and events where we have more participants that go mute for a particular period of time, right? Yeah, that's all I have. And thanks once again for joining today's event. And before we wind up, I have a couple of things to let you know, in our next month event for July, we have two amazing speakers signed up. The first one is Pandian. He's from Chennai, and he's an architect again. And he's going to talk about Angular internationalization, I18N. And I think he's going to share some demo, like with live code and other stuffs. And also we have another talk from Srashti, and she's going to talk about Azure static web apps, how to create Angular app and deploy it as Azure static web app in Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform, right? So we have these two interesting talks waiting for July. So just go ahead and RSVP for this event. I will just share this link in YouTube comments. Just go through the agenda and sign up for this event. And if you are interested to join our future events as a speaker, just let me know. You can reach out to me in Twitter. I already posted my Twitter handle, Ask Uday. You can just reach out me there. So this is my handle. You can just go and DM me. We can get in touch. Okay. And one last thing, I have one more event coming up, which is NG Kerala event, which is organized by Kerala team for Angular. And this event is scheduled for next week, Saturday, I think same time. Yeah, 5 to 6:45. Yes. So you can listen to talks from Siddharth, who is a GDE again, and me, and we are going to talk about Angular IV and preloading strategies. So you can join us next week, and I will just share this detail in YouTube comments again. Go through this tweet and find more details about this event. Okay. So anything else before we wind up? Okay, if you want to say something about this event, you can just go ahead and do it in YouTube comments. Like if you want to let know like how it went, what can be improved, you can just let me know in the YouTube comments. That's fine. So we are just building the group. So yeah, sure, Shabir. We will have PWA event coming up soon. We will have it as a separate event in July for sure. Yeah. Anything else before we wind up? Okay. Thank you. And thanks, Santosh. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sorry, just a small update. I mean, the code was correct. So the last code which we wrote for factory. So I was just missing this return statement, and everything was perfect. So there was no problem with the code base. So just an update.
Sure, Santosh. Just share the repository link in YouTube comments. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, sure. I have to push it, so it will take some time. Maybe I will just send it to you, and then you can do it.
Sure, I'll do it.
Comments. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Yeah. Bye bye.